Hi guys, happy live. Sorry I am late. It's one of those days. It always goes closer on me for some reason. I'm gonna move this back. See if that works. Meh. Okay. Sorry. I had a flat tire today. It's my fifth one in the last a month. So that's frustrating. So I'm a little behind, so I apologize. We are officially 1 week from our next $2,500 mortgage rent giveaway. So next Wednesday at 9 a.m., if you guys are free, tune in and we will surprise somebody with a big check for $2,500. So feel free to nominate away to anybody in Simcoe County as long as they're over the age of 18 and, like I mentioned, live in Simcoe County, okay? It can be for any reason. So I will dive in to questions first. We'll do happy news. We'll do our normal. So questions as well as your real estate update, okay? So first question comes from Katie in Barrie, and Katie said, I can't afford to buy right now, and I've seen some rent-to-own flyers on poles. Flyers on poles seem sketchy to me. Are they a scam? Thank you, Katie, for asking. So to be honest, rent-to-own, I would either have you just rent or just own. Obviously, own being the preferable, most preferred preferable option, that's a word, of the two, as opposed to having the third as rent to own. So what really happens in rent to own is the people that have those properties actually want you to default on your mortgage, okay? So it's less than 3% of people that do rent to own actually end up buying the property, and they do that on purpose. So if you have crazy bad credit, or you don't have a lot down, or you have a sketchy job, or you move around a lot, they actually prefer that because they want you to default. So basically, let's just say the rent is $2,000 a month, and they say, hey, we'll do your rent for $3,000 a month, and each $1,000 that you pay extra to us will go towards your down payment of the house. And they usually have you put down a clump at the beginning, like let's just say 5 or 10,000 again to go towards that. But they want you to default. So even if you miss it by 1 day, so instead of on September 1st, you pay it September 3rd, they don't care. You lose all of the money that you put down, okay? So they purposely want you to, I know it sounds really bad, but that's what it is. They want you to default just so they could get that extra money that whole time that you rented there. So if you rented 8 years or 7 years, whatever, they just got a really high rent for that time. So I personally do not suggest that. So if you can afford to buy, then buy. And if not, I would continue to rent until you can, okay? But thank you for asking. So there's a shelter in Germany that's doing things a little bit different. I don't even need to flip to that page. I know what it is. Doing it differently. So they're taking pictures of their dogs and cats in Germany, and they're actually posting like little profiles and so forth, and they're putting it on Tinder. And then if people match up, then the volunteers are talking with the people and finding out, like, do they have a fenced yard? How much do they work? Do they have time to walk the dog, or whatever cats do? I don't know what cats do. What their criteria is for cat owners. But anyways, I just thought it was cute because they are, instead of having all of these animals euthanized or put down, etc., at certain phases of their life and so forth, they are able to match them up to homes. So I thought that was cute. The next question comes from Tim in Alliston. So Tim said, I was doing some renovations on my home, but with COVID and delays, I just finished now what I wanted to be done back in May. Did I miss the boat? Thank you, Tim, for asking. So you didn't miss the boat. The two biggest markets in real estate are in the spring and the fall. So the spring one is usually, I don't know when officially spring starts. However, the spring market is basically middle of March. So you're middle of March, April, May, June, and then a lot of people want to close like the last week of July or the last week of June or the first 2-3 weeks of July. So that is the spring market. The second busiest market is the fall market, which we're coming up to now. So it's not less busy than the spring market. It's just a smaller window, okay? Because not as many people want to move once kids are already in school. They want to be situated before school starts. Not as many people, basically the people that are moving are the ones that either don't care about the school district, or the kids are not in school yet, they're under the age of 5, or the kids are older, they have their own cars and so forth, or they don't have any kids, or they have to move, they're getting divorced, they don't have the money to pay the mortgage payment anymore, they lost a job, or they got a raise or a new job and they can afford a new home, so they want to celebrate and buy. So there's still always a fall market, so you did not miss out, and it's actually been pretty busy. I've been showing every day to different families, and there's still been lots of offers. We've had multiples every day, so thank you for asking. So no, you did not miss it. Next thing is, again, before I get into real estate, I always do a couple things quick first. So there was a lady from Poland, and she won a gold medal, and basically she's only had it for 2 weeks. And she heard about a boy back from where she was from. And obviously she won the medal in Tokyo, so she's not back home yet, but she heard through social media about this little boy who had a heart disease, and she has conquered cancer herself, so she knows that time is of the essence to get the treatment that the little boy needs. So she decided to put her medal online, and it was $385,000 for the surgery and to fly this little boy from Poland to California. So she thought half of it had already been raised like by online fundraising. So she thought maybe her medal would get the rest of it. And it turns out it got way more than that. And the person that ended up offering on the medal said, you know what, you can keep the medal. We just want to do the donation and thank you for basically bringing it to our attention. So that was really cute. She got to keep the medal. The little boy got his surgery and he is doing healthy and recovering now. So that was very cute. The next question comes from Brad in Creemore. So Brad in Creemore says, I saw quite a while ago a check giveaway you did at the nursing home. Do winners have to be first responders to receive the check? The person I'm thinking of is currently not employed. Thank you, Brad, for asking. They do not have to be first responders. They can be anybody. I don't know if that's Kayla. If it is, hi Kayla. If it's not, I'm sorry, whoever that is that I just said the wrong name to. Doesn't tell me your guy's name, just shows me a little picture as a little baby. But so no, they do not have to be first responders. They do not have to be a job or have a job, but they do have to be over the age of 18 and they have to live in Simcoe County. So it could be because of a sad reason you're nominating them or a happy reason. They could be a super encouraging neighbor, somebody down the street from you, somebody at some small business that you go into. It could be a large business you go into and they make your day, or it could be a sad reason. We never tell people's reasons of why we pick them, so don't worry if they are more shy or you don't want people to know that maybe they're having a hard time financially or what have you. We don't ever give that information. So no, they do not have to be a first responder. That was a roundabout way for me to say that. But thank you for asking. And then one more thing before I jump into real estate is the power of the internet. So there was this fellow, and he started basically at the beginning of COVID. His name was Tommy Marcus. And he started basically, a webpage, and he had different memes and jokes and so forth just to kind of uplift people's spirits during COVID. And he called it Quentin Quarantino. That's kind of a tongue twister. Too many Q's in there. Basically just a way to pass the time and uplift people's spirits. And then it became a bit more serious and he started to have like news articles and so forth on it. Anyways, everything that's going on with Afghanistan and Taliban and so forth, he said, let's try and help some of these people that we can. And basically he set up a GoFundMe. Within 24 hours, he had over $550,000. And within, that was 2 hours. Within 24 hours, he had $6 million. And so for every $500,000 that he gets, they're getting a plane there, which basically each ticket on the plane is $1,500 for somebody to get on, which obviously is not paid by them. It's covered. So something that went from jokes is now helping people and saving their lives. So I liked that. Real estate. Hello, how are you? I feel like it's Star's daughter. I can't remember your name. I apologize, but I know you're Star's daughter. Okay, let me jump into real estate because I actually have a lot of real estate today. It's long, so I apologize that it's so long. But last week I talked about the conservatives and what they're saying, in relation to real estate and the upcoming election. But somebody else who is jumping on the bandwagon is the NDPs. So as most of you know, the election is September the 20th. So basically the NDPs are saying that they want to reintroduce the 30-year mortgage amortization. So we've had that in the past, then they've taken it away and it's just gone to 25 years. And now they're saying they want to bring it back to 30 years. There is also the president of this mortgage company called Mortgage Architects. And he's saying that he wants something that some people define it as crazy. He thinks it's the only solution. So he thinks there should be 50-year mortgages. So if you can imagine, you buy a home at 30 and you have a mortgage potentially for 50 years. But basically, it's just a way to make your payments smaller, right? Hi. Sorry that I couldn't think of your name, but yes. Hello. I recognized your faces in the little bubble. So basically, it just makes your payments less. So just instead of say they were $1,800, now they're $1,400 because it's spread out longer, then that might make you get approved for a higher mortgage, or maybe you can get into the market in the first place. Maybe you can't if it's at a 25-year mortgage, but you can if it's at a 50-year mortgage. So that is why he is suggesting that. It is just all talk. It's not saying that it's coming, but it is just all talk, something that he wanted to do just for first-time buyers. He doesn't want it, obviously, to go to investors and people that have bought 2, 3, 4 times, because then first-time buyers are still then always getting outbid by those people. So he thinks the 50-year mortgages should just be for first-time buyers. They would still have to qualify at that new rate as of June 1st, the 5.25. But because, like I said, the payment every month would be less, it would just make it easier for them to actually get into the market. So that is why he is suggesting that. But obviously it depends who gets in for election time, if that can go forward. Then there's another fellow, his name is Dustin Woodhouse, and he's basically saying along the same things like he agrees with. If a person's 25 or 30, he's like, what's adding 5, 10, 15 years to a mortgage? So he's saying it'll give them $300-ish extra a month, so they could, have a car payment with that, or they could, buy a couch and so forth. And basically he's saying people will take that extra $300 and put it back into the economy, which is then obviously good for other businesses, small businesses, large businesses, etc. So it's just like a snowball effect, but in the good way. So he also agrees with that. There's another president of a company, and he says he doesn't think whether it's a 30-year mortgage or a 50-year mortgage that's going to make any difference. He said we still have lack of inventory. So he was talking a lot about immigration. So basically he's saying, yes, immigration is good, but we have lack of inventory. So he says he doesn't like saying, stop immigration, because then everybody says he's racist. But basically he's saying, like, we don't have enough homes for people to rent or buy for the people that are already born here. So why are we bringing other people here? That is what he is saying. So he says it doesn't matter 30 or 50 year, it's not going to fix the problem. And then there's another lady she owns a mortgage company. Her name's Laura. And she also agrees that it's the lack of inventory, but also the first-time buyers, that the dollar amount that they make per year isn't enough to get them qualified for a mortgage that makes sense to them. Let's just say they're qualified for $180,000. Good luck trying to find a house for $180,000. So she actually agrees with the 30-year mortgage or a 50-year mortgage, because then they could potentially get into a mortgage in the first place. She says if people say about immigration that it's just an excuse, because she said that, how most people know that from 2020 to 2021, real estate has skyrocketed and the borders were closed that whole time. So she says if you're blaming immigration why you haven't bought a house, the borders have been closed this whole time and you still haven't bought a house and the prices have still gone up. So it's not obviously immigration. She's saying, lack of inventory, or that, what you make doesn't give you a high enough approval rate. Okay. Hi, Scotty. Happy live. I am talking a million miles a minute, Scotty. Scotty's helping me with my flat tire, hopefully. Okay, so for example, if you have a $600,000 mortgage and it's a 25-year amortization at 2.5% interest rate, you have to make $108,000 a year to be approved at the debt to service ratio, which on average is 35%. So it means for every $100, they only want you to spend 35, okay? So you have to make $108,000 a year as a dual income or a single income if you're buying it by yourself. But if it's a 30-year mortgage, then you have to make $96,000. So you don't have to make as much, but you still get approved for that $600,000 home. So you can imagine if the amortization rate went to 50 years, not rate, amortization period went to 50 years, then how much, less people would have to make a year and their payments and so forth. So that's basically why that one fellow was saying that. She also agrees with the NDPs with the 30-year thing. She didn't comment on the 50-year thing, and it's just that one broker's idea, like I mentioned to you. So on a side note, the NDPs also want to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, but a lot of people are saying that that's just going to inflate the market everywhere, which will eventually just come back into real estate. So they have said that, like, raising a false floor will raise everything falsely, and makes no sense and just comes out in the wash anyways. So basically they're saying if people are currently fighting over $600,000 homes right now, they're just going to be fighting over $675,000 homes or whatever they're now pre-approved for if they change something like the minimum wage or, like somebody could say the 50-year mortgage. So we're all fighting for $500,000 homes, but now it's a 50-year amortization. So now they're approved for 700, for example. I don't know if that's the actual how it'll work out, but now they're all fighting for 700. So then some people still say it's the lack of inventory. And then again, people say that too much immigration. So there's all different sides of it, but I just like to cover it all with you guys so you are aware. What else? Oh yeah, so the Toronto Real Estate Board, which is now called the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, they have 60 different areas in the GTA. They have lots of other areas as well. They have Sudbury, they have London, they have Barrie, Sudbury, etc. But of their GTA areas, there's 60, and 54 of the 60 now cost over $1 million to get a detached home. So that is kind of crazy that there's only 6 left in the GTA that you can get a detached for less than 600,000. Or sorry, $1 million. Oh my goodness, $1 million. See, I'm old school. I'm saying 600,000, less than $1 million. And those were all 905 area codes, by the way, that had those less than $1 million homes. And 2021 so far in the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board has had the highest beginning of the year ever. So there's been 70,000 sales that have moved, or 70,000 people that have moved, and most of them have been buyers, not people listing, okay? So 11,297 people have listed their property, and normally it averages just around 17,000. So less people are listing their homes, but there was obviously almost 60,000 buyers. So 35% less listings, I should say, but 60,000 buyers. So again, the strongest beginning half of the year ever has been in 2021. Some places that had significant gains were Uxbridge. So Uxbridge went from 933 on average to 1.365. There's this place called Scugog, which I have never heard of. I had to look it up. It is east of Aurora and north of Oshawa. And they jumped from 685 to 986 in 1 year. Milton jumped from 979 to 1.314. So Simcoe County jumped 28.7% from 596 to 768. And that is just comparing last year's August to the beginning of this year's August, okay? So again, locally 596 to 768 from August of last year to August of this year. What else? They did a recent detailed analysis of people that were buying. And they did that, again, this is from the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So these were people from Toronto that were buying. So majority of first-time buyers left Toronto to buy to find more affordability, which obviously makes sense. But people that already owned basically took their equity and then were buying more desirable homes for them, taking that fast equity they've made in the past year, 2, 3, even 5. Whereas the first-time buyers are not, and typically been buying in Toronto, and they've been buying elsewhere, whether north, east, west, etc. So that's what they found. And I already said, they're taking advantage, obviously, of the low interest rates. Okay, so Bank of Canada is still saying that they're not expecting to raise rates for about a year, so it is expected the second half of 2022 to eventually raise that as the economy gets stronger and so forth, which they're already seeing signs of that now. And a little bit more politics-wise. Sorry, I always see your guys' picture, but I always forget to say hi. I wish it said names like it used to. A little bit more politics. I did say Conservatives last week what they were planning on doing for their election in relation to real estate and NDPs, but also the Green Party and Liberals have also been saying things. And basically everybody is just saying they have to address the housing crisis. Some people have called it the housing crisis campaign. So basically they're all just saying what they are going to do. The average price of a home in Canada, not just Toronto or Vancouver, has gone up over 30% since last year. And some places have gone up, not since last year, since July 2019. However, there are tons of places, as you know from past lives of mine, that tons of places have gone up over 30% just in 1 year, okay? But if you think of somewhere like 15 hours from Toronto, that's not something or somewhere that you would normally think of that's gone up over 30% in 2 years, but it has. And then again, some have gone up over 30% in 1 year. So sorry, I jump around a lot, but back to politics. So the Liberals said yesterday that they want to build or renovate 1.4 million homes in their 4 years. And the NDPs say they want to build 500,000 affordable homes, so low-income homes in 10 years. I didn't read, to be honest, what the Green Party said, and I only have so much time on here. So regardless of, who's trying to get your vote and so forth, there's basically, they're saying there's this crisis and what have you, but what are the main reasons? So there's 4 main reasons that people are saying. So we have your low interest rates, our lack of inventory and lack of new builds, investors, and money laundering. Okay, so I'll do a little bit on each of those. So low interest rates, obviously, for over a decade, there has been single digit interest rates, and back in the 80s and 90s was obviously double digit interest rates, double digit interest rates. So obviously people can afford more when they're paying 2% as opposed to 14% or 17%, etc. So Canadians currently are holding as a whole $1.7 trillion with a T trillion dollars worth of mortgages. 10 years they were holding $1 trillion, and now it's $1.7 trillion in mortgages. But yeah, the larger, the lower your interest rate, the more your mortgage can be. So people usually shop within 5% of their max. So if they're approved for $1 million, they're not shopping at $500,000. They're shopping within 5% of that $1 million. Okay. So Central Bank of Canada has not raised their rates since March 2020. There's lots of banks that have, changed their rates and so forth, but Central Bank of Canada has stayed at 0.25. And like I said, with the with the economy going up and everything getting stronger, the Bank of Canada says if it continues, they will up their rates second half of 2022. So the second thing is no inventory, lack of new builds, which obviously has to do with immigration and a lot of things. So, but basically the basic math of it is, I can't speak today. I think it's because I rushed and I was late starting. The basic math of it is that the amount of bodies that there are, the amount of people that need to buy, the amount of people that need to rent does not equate, okay? So there's not enough places for the amount of people that there is. So even though the borders have been closed, 2016 to 2019, obviously before the borders were closed, there was just around 1 million people that immigrated to Canada. And in 2017 and 18, 80% of our increase, basically our country's growth, came from immigration, not new babies into the world. And besides, permanent immigration, another thing that affects us is students. So just in 2019, so we were no COVID, etc., we had 402,000 new students to the area, and not areas in Simcoe, but into Canada. And as you know, a lot of students don't go back home when they're done their degree or so forth, so they stay. So that's on top of the other million that came. There was 402,000 just in that 1 year alone. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So basically they stretched around the Golden Horseshoe. So it's basically an hour from Toronto, like a fan kind of around Toronto. So since 2016, there's been 780,000 new people in that 1 hour radius of Toronto. And the 5 years prior to that, there was 510. So it went from 510 to 780, which is fine. But if we look at the amount of homes that they made, so the last 5 years, they made 270,000 homes. So there's 780,000 new people, but only 270,000 new homes. So lack of inventory. And the 5 years before, there was 510,000 new people, but 214,000 new homes. So basically, not exactly, but basically the last 5 years, there was about a third. So they'd make 1/3 of the homes for the people that came. So 2/3, there wasn't enough homes, 1/3 there was. And before it was about 50-50. So 50% of the people there was enough homes for, and 50% there was not. Basically, they were building 1/3 of the homes they need to in the last 5 years, whereas before they were building 1/2 of the homes that they needed to. So obviously our lack of inventory was long before COVID. On a side note, the highest number of millennials will turn 30 in 2021, and obviously turning 30 is a popular age to buy a home. So that is something we have a lot of people buying right now. And a lot of people, there's all different reasons people are blaming on the housing crisis, or whatever you want to call it. Some people say the bubble, some people say the crisis, some people say it's the missing middle, they call it, okay? So they say there's lots of, tiny little gross apartments and lots of executive homes, but no homes for the in-between people. Other people blame the baby boomers, and they say that they want to stay in these big homes as opposed to traditionally moving into like little apartments or going into nursing homes or condos, etc. Oh, Scotty said he left the car doctor, so he's fixing my car. Thank you. So another reason, I said the 4 reasons basically, regardless of what politicians are saying they're going to fix, why are these things? So the next reason is investors. So we can point my finger at me and other investors. So basically, there's good return, obviously, in real estate. So people are often drawn to it. And often, if they have extra money, they want to invest in the real estate market. But this takes away from first-time buyers as well as new residents to Canada being able to purchase, because then investors are purchasing and often they have deeper pockets than those first-time investors or those people new to Canada that are often in middle or lower class jobs. So 20% of the homes that have been bought in 2021 in all of Canada have been from investors. I myself have bought 3, so we can blame a lot of investors. But yes, so that is another reason. Back in 2015, 18% of the homes bought in August, not in August, up to August, were from investors. This year, 20, it was 20 and change, 20.7% or whatever, have been bought by investors. So investors will either buy it and they will rent it short term or long term, or some of them will just keep it vacant, more common in Vancouver and Victoria. And that is why they, in Vancouver, put the vacancy tax on. So they put an extra tax. So not only do they charge you 20% if you buy and say you're from China or whatever, it started at 15%, then they changed it to 20%, but they also charge you a vacancy tax. So if you just let your house sit there, then they will also charge you that tax. Even though there is that tax there, just around 5% of the city still has vacant homes. So some people say we don't care, we're just going to pay the vacancy tax, and other people have rented it out, which helps create new inventory for renters or what have you, short-term or long-term. So some people blame Airbnb. There was a study done by McGill University in 2019. And in 2019, I'm sure it's a lot higher now, but so in 2019, Airbnb took 31,000 homes off the market that were being rented long-term and turned them into short-term, which obviously then affects the the long-term renters who want to rent it for 3-4 years while they save for a home. And over 50% of those properties were in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal. And I would agree with that because I have one in Toronto that I Airbnb and I bought it in 2018. So that makes sense to me. So that is another reason why all of these reasons altogether, the low interest rates, the lack of inventory and so forth. Another reason is money laundering. I'm not going to get into that a lot because obviously it's illegal and I'm not going to tell you how they do it. But basically it said that in between 3.7 and 7.5% in every province, the prices are higher because of money laundering. And it's most common in Toronto and Montreal. And the federal government actually put $2.1 million this year towards suspicious activity. But people are saying that there is a lot more money needed than that to stop it. That was my long wind of that. Anyways, next question is from Becky and Grant. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write them in here. Otherwise, I will answer these questions that come in throughout the week. I always just pick 6 so it fits in with my stuff. But if you have other questions, I will answer them. So Becky and Grant said, we met you at an open house some 8-ish years ago and have always loved your newsletter updates. We haven't moved in the past 11 years. We're getting to the point, though, where our home is getting tight for our family, but if we upgrade, we won't have funds to help our kids, and that's important to us. What should we do? Thank you, Becky and Grant, for asking, and that is very nice that you want to help your kids, and obviously, it's hard for first-time buyers to buy right now, let alone depending on the age of your kids. So it's hard for me to say because I don't know what the reason is about your house. I don't know if your kids are teenagers and, there's no parking on the street in the winter kind of thing, and they're getting tickets, or I don't know if it's physically not big enough, you need more bedrooms, or I don't know if it's too far, from work and people are commuting, so I can't really say. You could always put a basement apartment in, for example. Let's just say you're like, hey, let's put a basement apartment in and do an addition above the garage and throw our boys up above the garage and do a basement apartment below. And, the boys, half of the money each month of the basement apartment, half could go towards one of their college education, half could go towards, their RSP or the other, what have you. So I can't really judge on it because I don't know the full details, so I apologize. You can feel free to message me privately in the messages and I can answer that. You could always invest. Let's just say, I'm just making up numbers. Say you have 500,000 equity in your home. You could divide it to 2 and you could take that 250 and you could buy, an Airbnb property with that, and whatever, money that makes as well as what it goes up, you could give to the boys, or you could keep the income from it. And then whatever it goes up, you could give them. I just made up that you have boys. I don't know if you have boys or girls. Sorry. You might have girls. And then buy another home that's more suitable with the other $250,000, assuming that you have some equity in your home. Since you have lived there for 11 years, you probably have a lot more than $500,000, but it was just an easy number to use. But if you message me, like I said, privately, I can answer you more specific depending on what, your actual situation is. But thank you for asking. Again, I just say random news sometimes, so I don't know if there's such thing as good hackers, but there was a fellow, I forget what his name, Mr. White Hat or something, and he hacked $600 million from a company, a cryptocurrency company, and so he called this, I don't know if he called them, but he messaged this company or something like that, and said, you have a flaw in your system, I've taken $600 million, here it is back, you should probably get that fixed. Which is crazy. He took $600 million. A lot of people will go disappear on an island and never to be found again. But he gave it back, and they offered him a job in their security department and gave him a $500,000 reward, which makes no sense since he just gave him $600 million back. But anyways, there's good people in the world because he could have just stole $600 million from a whole bunch of people through this company. But he didn't. He gave it back. The next question is from Marcel and Claire and Oro. So Marcel and Claire asked, we live in the water in Oro and love it, but know they are hot properties. Do you think we should hold on to it or make a quick buck? Thank you, Marcel and Claire, for asking. It depends what you want to do. And I know I apologize. Sometimes my answers are kind of vague because if, for example, a lot of people want to take advantage of the current market, but then they want to go buy exactly what they have for $400,000 cheaper and it does not work. So if you say, I want to sell my home in Oro, let's just say I'm making up numbers because I don't know your house, for $2 million in Oro, but then I want to go buy in Oro the exact same house, but newer, with newer windows, with a bigger garage and a vaulted ceiling and 30 more feet frontage for 1.4, 1.6, that does not exist, which a lot of people think that they can do, which does not make sense. So if you're buying in the same market, you obviously have to not be on the water anymore. You have to have a smaller square footage. You have to maybe not be as new or what have you. You can't buy the exact same house or even nicer for less unless you go further away. So if you're heading away from Toronto, away from the city, obviously you're going to get more bang for your buck. So if you're open to that and wanted to do that, let's just keep going with that $2 million, for example. Let's just say you did that, you bought somewhere up north for $700,000 and you have that 1.3 extra. If that makes sense to you, awesome. But if you have to stay close because you're still working or you have grandkids or what have you, then maybe that's not an option for you. So it just kind of depends because obviously if you're buying in the same market, you can't buy the same house or nicer house for less, which a lot of people unfortunately think you can. And that does not work like that, even though it would be nice if it did. Thank you for asking, and feel free to write privately if you have more specific, okay? Thank you for asking though. So again, I just do random happy news. There was, or I guess not even happy news, this one's more like what would you do? There was a fellow in Nova Scotia, and I can't see in there, little people's bubbles. There's a fellow in Nova Scotia and he saw 2 dogs on the side of the road. He's pulled over, which I would pull over as well. Turns out there was an upside down car and 2 people injured in the car. So he obviously called 911. The lady got like a helicopter, whatever you call that, rescue, taken away to a nearby hospital at a bigger city, and the ambulance and so forth. I guess it was some road. I don't know why it was so far away. It wasn't getting there on time. So he just decided to drive the guy to the hospital, and he took the guy's 2 dogs as well. So I was just curious what you guys would do, if you would just wait for the ambulance or if you would just say, I'm just going to do it myself and take them. But anyways, they're both recovering well. So they are good and healthy, and glad that the puppies got that man's attention because the car was so flipped off the side, he probably wouldn't have seen it, but the dogs allowed him to stop. We have a question from Josie in Innisfil. So Josie said, sorry, I talk a million miles a minute, guys. Josie from Innisfil asked, With the election next month, do I see the real estate market dropping? Or do you see, sorry, I read that wrong. Do you see the real estate market dropping? I don't, Josie, because so many of them are trying to say like, hey, we'll give a 30-year mortgage. Hey, we'll give a 50. Well, that was a mortgage person, not a politician. But hey, we'll do this. Hey, we'll do that. So no, I don't see that because they can't just suddenly, hey, here's 1.4 million or 1.4 million new homes, right? Obviously that takes time. So still lack of inventory and still people wanting to move all the time. I do not see the market going down because of the election. And if you read any, analysis of any sort, they will say the same thing because we still have our lack of inventory. Long before COVID, we had that. We still have the low interest rates and we still have tons of people moving, taking advantage of the market and all of the equity they have made in the past year, let alone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, depending on how long they have been in the business. And then if any of these politicians and so forth put something in for the first time buyers, that'll help all those people. Like I mentioned, the highest number of millennials are turning 30 this year. So that'll help them all get into the market if they're not already in the market. So no, I do not see it going down because of the election, but thank you for asking. Oh yeah, I said about Afghanistan earlier. Third time's a charm. There was actually a lady there. She had seen a video in 2014 about this like friendly dog there that only had its 2 front paws, not its back paws, because it was hit by a car in 2013. And when she saw everything going on with Afghanistan and Taliban and so forth, she thought of this dog. Don't ask me how, but somehow she tracked down the dog and somehow she got it out of the country and got it to Manchester. I don't know how. She has 8 other dogs that are like, one's a quadriplegic, one's blind, one's deaf, one's also missing legs and so forth. This lady's a doctor, not a veterinarian, but a human doctor. And she says sometimes her days are very long and stressful, so she likes going home to all of these friendly faces and all of these puppies that she can give a second chance. I apologize for being late. I apologize for being all over the place with my scattered brain. And if you guys have any other questions about real estate or just anything in general, feel free to shout. And don't forget to nominate somebody for next month. I was going to say next month's. It is next month's, but it's next week's giveaway for the $2,500. So 1 week from today is the first of the month, and we'll be giving somebody $2,500 on the first of the month. They do not have to have any ties to Cripps Realty, which is what I own, but is no ties whatsoever. So it can be anybody in the community, and to be honest, we haven't had anybody that has have any ties to us. And you just have to send a video or a written submission to info@crippshomes.com. Again, info@crippshomes.com, telling us who you are and who they are and why you think they should win and why. And then I'll read this. Barry Price. For the next 2 years for Barry Price. Baba, thank you for asking. So I do think it'll go up. So Barry was the last city to double in size and is supposed to be the next city to double in size. So I don't know where you live, but for example, if you lived in Toronto and you know Yorkville, so one of the fellows that did a lot of the developments in Yorkville, he has bought up the property in Barrie that used to have the cinemas on it, and he's building, I forget if it's a 38-story and 32-story, something like that, or 40-story and 36 or something like that. He's building towers like that. Currently, the highest is 16 stories in Barrie, so obviously it's more than double. So that's going to be there. Plus, there's also multiple other condo projects that are going up as well. They are putting over $10 million into the Barrie bus station, and they're going to make it like Kensington Market if you're familiar with Toronto. So it's going to have a nice market there where you can get flowers, fresh, seafood, food, and so forth. And there's just lots of money being pumped into downtown. We obviously have the college that has, 6 university programs in it. And then our proximity, an hour to Toronto, an hour to Muskoka, Cottage Country, etc. So it's going to keep developing and keep going up. So if you were hoping that I was going to say it was going to go down so you could get into the market cheaper, I am not saying that. So I apologize if that is what you were wanting. But if you already own here, and then it's good news because then your property is going to go up. So anyways, thank you, Baba, for asking. And again, any other questions, feel free to shout. Hope you guys all have a super evening. Stay well, be kind to one another, and don't be afraid to go after your dreams.